Selling your house in fall of 2025, everything you should know, consider, and prepare for before you go on the market. My name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years, and I've been loving Houston since 1987. Let's get into it. All right, so price, condition, and location are all the things that make the buyer world go round. And hot take, price and condition are part of your marketing. It's not just marketing, your price and condition is part of the marketing. How easy is it to market a property with a super high price and a very low grade of condition? Very hard. Now, if you put your property in the best condition possible and you've priced it appropriately, obviously you cannot move this house for location. That is the easiest way to market your property. Now, there are definitely open houses and Facebook and Google ads that you can run, but highly likely your buyer is specifically looking in your neighborhood. So put your house in the best condition possible and price it appropriately. If the comparables are showing 550,000, you should consider 539, not 550. Now, 539 is only $11,000 lower than the comparables, but remember, we don't want to be chasing the market. We want to be ahead of the market. And wouldn't you rather one or two offers in the first 5 to 14 days on market at 539 rather than 35 days on the market at 550 and no offers? And then we have to reduce the price. And then we have a buyer coming in and saying, oh, well, I guess I'll write you an offer. So we want to price ahead of where the market is going. We do not want to be chasing it. So condition is more important to buyers than I have ever seen it. I've been doing this for over 12 years. I have helped so many buyers. I have shown thousands of houses in my tenure in the business, and I have never experienced condition being so important to buyers right now. And even on the listing side, the feedback that I'm hearing after showings is, oh, the buyer wishes that the paint was new, or that there was new flooring, or that there was new carpet, or they wish that the kitchen was more updated. The list is endless of buyer complaints right now. And so, in order to sell your house fast for the most dollars possible, you definitely want to put it in the best condition possible so we lessen their bucket of ammunition against us. Price under market. Well, I've already covered this, but definitely price under market. So 550, if that's your market value, then you should consider like 539, 535. If you are valued at about a million, I would recommend 989, 975, or 949. Wouldn't you rather sell your $1 million house a lot faster? Why would you want to sit on the market for 45 or 90 days for $10,000? You might get a high offer or you might not. It also depends on who is out there that specific weekend looking at houses. And if a buyer is out there that's qualified in your price point and in your neighborhood, and they've already lost a house, or they wish they had bought X house and it's sold before they could get an offer in, if they're out there that weekend and they love their house, that they love your house, then they're going to compete for your house. But most buyers are taking their time. I have never before seen buyers say, you know what, we're just going to think about it. And they go home and they don't give me feedback on a house for another 3 days. And then, so usually that house is already sold. I cannot tell you how many times I have talked to people in the driveway after showing them a house and said to them, If you do not make a decision right now, you will lose this house. You have no time to think about anything. Do you want to write an offer or not? That's not the market we're in. The market we're in right now is buyers are seeing the house at the open house. And then they're making a showing appointment with their agent on Tuesday after the Saturday open house. They're going to see it on Tuesday and they're going to have their lender run the numbers. And then they might want to see the house again at another open house or after a price reduction, and then they come back to the open house. Some buyers are deciding to take 3 to 5 weeks to make a decision on a house. Now, if they love your house and you price it appropriately, perhaps they would have made an offer at the first showing at the open house. So, price and condition, I cannot stress it enough. All right, expectations. Buyers are a little crazy right now, and they will terminate if you breathe wrong. So, as a seller, you need to be prepared for anything, and you should be prepared to be terminated on. And even the best listing agent, the best with 39 years of experience, they're not always going to be able to prevent a buyer terminating without, without a reasonable cause, which if the buyer terminates within their option period, they have the unrestricted right to terminate. So they actually don't even have to give you an answer. They just check the box. Buyer is exercising their right to terminate. So I am seeing buyers agents bluffing. I'm seeing them say something to me and then they not carry through on it, or saying they're going to terminate, the buyer's going to terminate if we don't say yes. Now, you as the seller, you have to make that call. You have to decide your line in the sand. And if you say no to something in this market right now, you also have to be willing to be terminated on. And only you can decide the answer to that question. Be prepared for them to miss their deadlines or not know when their option period is ending. Recently I had an agent, I called them on the last day of option, a couple hours before the end, which is 5 p.m. on the dot. And I said, "Hey, I'm just confirming that like you're all good." They didn't even know. They didn't even know it was the end of their option period. We did extend. We were gracious enough to extend, but people are missing their deadlines. I recently had one where the buyer missed their earnest money deadline. And if the buyer does not turn in their earnest money by the deadline, they technically forfeit their right for unrestricted termination. So they are free to inspect the property, but should they terminate, they will lose their earnest money and the seller will keep it. And not all agents understand this rule. And when an agent has not adequately prepared their buyer for this, it can get a little emotional and a little ugly. I have had to follow up with an agent and a brokerage before for 6 months to recover earnest money that was supposed to be awarded to the seller, and the buyer just refused to sign the release of earnest money. And we did eventually sell that property, but it was a big headache. So unskilled agents, the buyers are asking for the moon right now. They're asking for the stars and the moon, and you can say yes or you can say no. But again, when and if you say no, they might terminate. And also, you might say yes and they might still terminate. I had one also that the seller agreed to everything that the buyer asked, and we sent over the signed amendment. And instead of saying, "Thank you, received," the buyer's agent sent me a termination for no reason because the buyer changed their mind. Um, be prepared for the buyer's agent to ghost or the buyer to ghost. That has happened to me before. I've had to reach out to people's managing brokers to get a hold of them. Um, Also, be prepared for something that may be out of the buyer's control. People are losing their jobs right now. It is not a fun thing to talk about, but even here in Houston with a very strong and diversified job market, People are losing their jobs unexpectedly. And even at large, stable companies like Shell, Exxon, Deloitte, and EY, people are holding their breaths as they go through many rounds of layoffs. This also might be a reason why you're deciding to sell. I'm not sure, but just remember that whatever you're experiencing, likely your buyer might also be experiencing it. So don't be surprised if you make it through option period, everything is good, and then the buyer loses their job, which they no longer qualify for financing anymore, and they may have to terminate. They also could lose their financing for other reasons. They may not have understood one of their qualification points. They might crazy enough file for divorce or sign a loan for somebody. Buyers do crazy things when they're under contract, so don't be surprised if the buyer loses their financing approval. The buyers simply just change their mind sometimes. And also, cost of insurance is really high. And I've talked about this in some of my videos, but the cost of insurance is just continually skyrocketing. There are parts of town where the cost of insurance on a $500,000 house is the same amount that it would cost on $1 million house in a different part of town. Uh, the insurance companies definitely have their justifications and their map lines, but before your buyer puts in an offer, they should be looking at the cost of insurance, and a good agent sometimes will ask them. And if you have a tricky house to insure, you might want to share who insures your house and see if that policy is able to be transferred to the new buyer, because I'm not joking here. The cost of insurance has made a bunch of contracts fall out recently, and within really the last 2 years, the cost of insurance has just skyrocketed after all of these hurricanes and storms here, really in the last 10 years in Houston. So if you're selling your house in the fall of 2025, condition, best condition possible, please. Clean is worth its weight in gold. Paint the wall, replace the carpet, clean the gutters, replace your air filters, have the HVAC maintenance, water the grass, have new sod put in, put a little landscaping, put flowers in a vase. Your agent should help you with all of this, but the condition is important, because if your condition is low quality, so will the offer price. And again, price it appropriately. Somebody recently said to me, if the house is not selling, the price is not compelling. So if you need to sell your house this fall, look no further. My name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years, and I have been loving Houston since 1987. And my heart comes alive with old houses built before 1975. So if you've got an old house that you need to sell, I am definitely your girl. I will see you on the next one. Till then, bye.